and welcome to episode 26 of the Paper Crane Yarns Knitting Podcast. My name is Ashley and I am a yarn dyer and yarn store owner located in central Alabama, USA. My shop is called Paper Crane Yarns, and here I carry my line of hand-dyed yarns and handmade project bags, as well as many other incredible makers and companies that I partner with, like Simply Serving, Quince & Co., Wool Dreamers, Sadness Garn, Coats & Co., to name a few. I have some really amazing brands that I work with and I carry in my shop. And so that's where I'm coming to you from today. If you are tuning in for the first time, you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, and Facebook as Paper Crane Yarns. I will have everything I talked about today linked down below in the description for this video. And yeah, I think that is my quick, my abridged about me. So today is Sunday, May 13th, 2023. And I realized a couple weeks ago that May 1st would have been my 2-year Podiversary, if you will. So I've been making these YouTube videos semi-regularly for 2 years now, which is pretty cool. My business is about as old as that. I started as a yarn dyer and quickly went to my brick and mortar location. So I opened my yarn store, I think about a year into dyeing yarn. And so when I started this podcast, I had not opened my store yet. I was just selling on Etsy. And I have my own website, which is papercraneyarns.com, also linked below. But yeah, so it's been 2 years, which is really fun. I am only on episode 26, which is a pretty small number when you think about 2 years. That's 26 days, I guess, of the past 2 years that I've spent doing this, if that makes sense, excluding the editing time and all of the stuff that goes into actually putting the video out. But yeah, anyway, so for 2 years I've been doing this and I think that's pretty cool. And if you've been here since the beginning, then that's really amazing. And I've more than likely gotten to know you pretty well. I get to converse with many of the people who have been kind of here with my YouTube channel and my business. It's really fun getting to know everybody, and I love seeing familiar names with comments and people who I talk with on Instagram. It's just been really, really great that my knitting and yarn community is not just sanctioned to my store in my local area. I just love that it's so expansive in terms of I've got friends in other countries. I've got people across this country. It's just really cool that the internet allows us to get to be friends, or at least in a limited sense. But anyway, it's been really fun. So thank you so much for welcoming me here for 2 years and coming back if you do, or if this is your first time. I just really appreciate that there are others who love these crafts, these handcrafts, and yeah, as much as I do, and I'm certainly not alone in that. And I love that we have all really, as a greater community, a greater crafting community, welcomed a space for makers to come and sort of showcase what they've been spending their time on and getting to talk about it. And yeah, it's really fun. So thank you so much. Okay. It's been about a month since I recorded last, and I've had quite a bit happen since then. So I think I was here at the end of March. I think I was here at the end of March last, something like that. And since then, we have gone to the Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair in Townsend, Tennessee. I was a vendor there for my 2nd year in a row. That was an amazing trip. It was such a whirlwind. I think we were there for 3 days or so, and we stayed in a beautiful Airbnb. We, as in me, my husband, and my daughter. This was my first show bringing my baby who's now 9 months old. The last year when I was at that fiber fair, I was pregnant with her, and so it was a lot of fun seeing her get to interact with everybody, which of course she does at my shop, but there were certainly a lot more people there than there are on a daily basis in and out of my shop. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had a really great time. We stayed on top of the sort of mountain overlooking Gatlinburg, and we had this lovely Airbnb, and that's where we spent our time. We came face to face with a bear. It was really fun and cute. It was a small bear, so I wasn't exactly worried, but so my husband and I, this was the first night that we were checking into the Airbnb before the show, and we got there really late, so it was dark, because the first thing we did when we got to Tennessee was we headed straight to the Smoky Mountain Heritage Center, and we had to set up our booth. I had a double booth, so it took many hours. We were there until past dark, and so finding our condo at the top of the mountain in the dark was not so fun. But anyway, we were bringing our bags and everything inside upstairs, and I'm of course carrying our baby, and we come out of the stairwell at one point, and we're across from the dumpster, and he didn't say anything and I didn't say anything, but we both noticed something, and I thought there was a person climbing into the dumpster in front of us, which everywhere in Tennessee and in other states that or mountainous areas, usually there are chains and locks on the dumpster, but I thought there was a person trying to climb into it. And then they did this kind of creepy slow turn where they turned and faced us, and I realized after my husband did that it was a bear. And it was like an adolescent bear, so it was a smaller bear, not a baby, but not a full-grown mama either. And anyway, my husband was just like, okay, bear, let's go, get out of here. And I felt sad because the bear just kind of was like, all right, and he sort of wandered off, but it was fun. So yeah, I was holding my baby, so of course I wasn't gonna exactly go to the bear. I went back into the stairwell, but it was nice to get to see the bear close up like that. And we also saw a ton of peacocks and turkeys, and my favorite critter that we came across on that trip was a beaver. I love, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. So that we did that. We've also had local yarn store day since I last recorded. That was April 29th, I want to say. It was the weekend after the Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair, so it was a very, very busy couple of weeks for me. And so now I'm sort of enjoying a bit of a deep breath right now, except for I have a wholesale order that I'm trying to fulfill, and I need to dye more yarn for my next show, which is June 10th. So June 10th is Worldwide Knit in Public Day, and last year I was a vendor at an event at the Hoover Library, which is near Birmingham, Alabama. And so this year I'll be back again as a vendor for Worldwide Knit in Public Day, so that's June 10th. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. I did get to see some people who I remember from last year at the Smoky Mountain Heritage Center, the Smoky Mountain Fiber Fair. There were people who came and saw me last year at that show who I recognized, and it was fun to catch up, and everybody got to meet my baby. And I had a couple of people who watch my podcast come and say hello, and that was really fun too. I always feel awkward if somebody mentions that. Not that I have a very big audience, but anytime somebody has told me like, oh, I watch your YouTube channel, I feel very self-conscious. Like, yeah, it's a little bit like, oh, I hope I wasn't too weird that day that I recorded. You know, I don't go back and watch unless I'm trying to remember something about a project, which is rare. So yeah, I hope I'm not too awkward, and I'm probably being awkward right now, so let's move on. So yeah, June 10th I'll have my next show, and yeah, so I'm busy trying to dye as much yarn as possible. And I think that kind of catches everybody up on what I've been doing. I'm sure I've left something out. My store expansion, we're working on a store expansion. We'll be taking out this wall behind me and opening up into the next unit, probably tripling our storefront space, which is really great because we are at max capacity. My storefront is quite full, so I'm looking forward to the space. We've done the floors so far. They're really pretty. My husband has started to really clean out the building. The back of the building had some things that needed to be kind of sorted, and he's patching the walls. And so now we have to paint and get a building inspector out. The unit hasn't been used in a long time, so they've got to inspect and just make sure it's all up to code, and then we'll start to do the fun things like decorating it and filling it with yarn. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so let's talk about my knitting. Today I'm not wearing any knitwear because here in Alabama it decided to be 90 degrees on this lovely May day, and what I'm wearing is already quite warm in front of all of my lights and whatnot, so no knitwear on my person. I do have these really beautiful new earrings on I'd like to show. This is from a jewelry maker in Ukraine. I bought these on Etsy and they got here really quickly. I expected them to take a while, which would have been totally fine, but I think I only waited a couple of weeks. But they are moths, and they have these nice big hoops. Of course, I've got one in each. And the designer also sent me a hair clip with one of these on there, which was really, really pretty and was such a sweet surprise. So I'm excited about that too. But I'll make sure to link this Etsy designer down below. They're really pretty. I think they're like so there you can see they're a soft texture. They look really realistic. So yeah, those are pretty. I guess that's what fun thing I'm wearing today. I've got a nice big bow in my hair. I've got a pinafore style dress on. Yeah, this is like my favorite kind of outfit. So so I know it's going to be a good day, even if I don't have the option of wearing knitwear. But at least I can show you my knitwear. So I have two finished objects to show you today, and sometimes when I disappear for a few weeks I come back with like 10 sweaters and a couple of shawls, but that's not the case this time. I have been working a lot on shop things, so for a little while there my knitting time was there wasn't as much that I could budget for as I would normally like to, but that's okay. And now I'm starting to have a little bit more knitting time again, so that's nice. But anyway, two finished objects. This first one is adorable. So this is a bow, big fluffy bow with merino silk and mohair. And this pattern is Augustins number 22. I hope I'm saying that right. I think she's a Danish designer. Of course, I'll have it linked below. She's got very lovely patterns, but I've wanted to make this bow pattern for a long time. It fits a lot of outfits that I wear. Again, I have like this silk black bow in my hair right now. And this is in my hand-dyed yarns. This is my Aurra colorway. Aurra is the name of my daughter, and these yarns were leftovers from a Love Note sweater I knit her when I was pregnant, and so I had a good bit of each skein left because I had knit the smallest size. So I probably had, half of each skein left of Aurra, and so I knew eventually I'd make a bow, and I finally did. It's really, really cute. I love the fabric. And this is the back. So it looks a bit awkward because it kind of is. I have worn this and loved it, in fact, with a very similar outfit, but I'm going to redo the way that it's attached. So I initially anchored it on just a regular hair tie, but it's really hard to get this in the hair. So this one I'm wearing, which is store-bought, has an alligator clip, a nice long one. I'm going to replace this hair tie with one of those because it's quite heavy and it pulls on the hair tie in such a way that it droops, and then I have to use pins to position it, and then yeah, it's just not the best option. This is what she recommends in the pattern, but other people on Ravelry had mentioned using other clasps and things to attach it. So I'm just going to to talk a little bit about the pattern. I hope that you guys will knit one of these if your heart desires it. I will say I was confused a bit by the pattern in the beginning because I could not conceptualize why this would be knit in the round, because it is knit in the round. And I will explain it for just a moment in case that helps anybody, because I was reading the pattern just fine. I understood the steps in which to knit this, but my brain could not see where it was going in terms of the instructions. So you have to cast on a few hundred stitches. It's a pay forward pattern, so I won't say too many details, but you cast on a few hundred stitches. I ended up having to do that 3 times because each time I cast them on, I got to the end and I was just a few short, which was a few, probably 20 or so I couldn't really like fudge it the way that I might normally if I was a little short. So anyway, I had to cast on 3 times. The 3rd time I did way more tail than I needed to, and I just decided I'm okay with a little bit of waste, especially since in the end you actually need a length of your yarn, so I thought I could use that later. Anyway, you cast on in the round because you're knitting a double layer fabric, so there is seaming involved in this pattern. So you end up with this really, really large, it almost looks like a sweater circumference, the hem of a sweater. That's how many stitches you have. And so you're knitting in the round, and then there are a couple of points in which you're doing these rapid sort of decreases which shape the bow. So you end up with a point in the fabric. And so then you've got this floppy in the round sort of knitting with these points, and eventually she has you go through and seam. So you can see this is where the decreases were. I couldn't figure out how to make that very neat. So that's not the seam, that is the decreases just folded over. I found that it doesn't really bother me because it's on the sides and it's noticeable, but not too bad. So let's see, you actually seam it. Yeah, it was a 3 needle bind off, which has a nice tidy edge. So that's on the inside. So then you have a long strip of like a double layered fabric, since it's knit in the round and then seamed with these points, and then you take a length of your yarn and you actually have to sort of fold the bow, and then you tie it in the center like that, and that's what gives it that nice pretty ribbon shape. And she has you tie the length over a hair tie. So I will undo that and add in a hair clip, and then it's on the floor, and then it'll be a lot easier to just pop into my hair and call it a day. So I'll need to touch that up, but otherwise it's finished, and it was a lot of fun. It was a very quick kind of knit. You know, it's nice to sort of have an easy project to just pick up and get to, if you don't have time to devote yourself mentally to something, which most of the projects I knit are color work or cabled or what have you, and so it's nice to have something to just work on. So that was that. So my next finished object is really spectacular. I'm super excited about it. This is a sweater. This was the mystery knit along hosted by Johanna, and it's a bug, not a feature, which of course is a play on words. So it's an all over colorwork sweater. Again, it was a mystery knit along at the time that I knit it, but it's the mystery, the MCAL is over with, so now the pattern is just out there. It's beautiful. I'm super excited and happy with it. So it was a 7 clue knit along. Each clue came out, I think they were 5 days apart or so almost a week. And it's a top-down circular yoke design. I'll show you in a moment, but I want to make sure I don't leave out any details. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I was able to keep up with the MCAL. Each portion of the pattern that came out, I finished it in the first day or two, and so that was nice because with it being over the course of 7 clues, it forced me to pace myself, and so I got to really make good decisions and take my time with knitting, because a lot of times I'm just kind of like a machine, because it's like a bee in my bonnet when I start a project and I just go. And so this was nice because it forced me to pace myself, and I worked on some other projects simultaneously. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. I sewed a special project bag to go with this pattern. This is just this little quilted bag that I made with my, as I said in my last episode, my dark forest leftover fabric scraps. So I I did a project bag collection with lots of bats, and I have done mushrooms, so these are just from some of those previous designs I've sold. This base fabric has moths on it. There's some moths tucked in. Each side is a bit different. The inside is like sleeping animals. Yeah, and so it's all quilted and very nice. And on this outside, I have a little charm that Marquita gave me. This is from Monarchy Threads. It's really pretty. I showed it in my last episode if you want some more details on that. So yeah, I have a bunch of my little scraps in here. The yarn that I used, my main color, it was just black in the KnitPicks Stroll, which is a sock yarn of 75/25 merino nylon, fingering weight wool. So my main color was black. I had 4 of these to start with. They're 50 grams, and I have this and like a tiny bit of another one left. So I would say all in all, I probably have 30 grams or so left. I used a good bit of my, so I had 200 grams total, and I used about 3.5 of the ball. So there you go. And then I had a mini skein set. This is from Coats & Co. Fiber, which is a hand dyeing business that I carry in my shop, but I purchased this off of her Etsy because I wanted a full set of her minis. She does beautiful tonal colors, and I thought they were perfect for this MCAL to do a fade. So yeah, I love this pink. I used a good bit of that one. There are quite a few, so I'm excited to use these for other projects. I'm planning on maybe making like stripy socks or mittens or something. So yeah, that was my little themed accessories for this project. And finally, to show you this incredible project. This is fully knit. I did the long sleeve option. It's been blocked with the lanolin based wool wash, and most of the ends, or I'll say a third of the ends, have been woven in. There's still some I'm working on slowly, but ta-da! I'll probably have to stand up to show you the full thing. Let's see. Look really great with these earrings if it wasn't too hot to wear it. That was what kind of inspired me to get these earrings, was so I could wear it with the sweater. Yeah, this is incredible. I'm so happy with it. The colors make me think of like an 80s arcade game. I was thinking like Pac-Man or Galaga. Yeah, I love the way that I faded this. I can't remember how much of this I showed the last time. I want to say I was through this part of the yoke, so I was still up here, and I was considering, as I was knitting it, this teal section. When I was doing my fading stripes, I kind of lost track that I was intending to fade, and I just knit a couple rows, so I have a large block of the teal, and I thought it would look a little bit silly. It needed a bit more fading, so I intended on ripping it out, but then I kind of decided, like, looking at a project up close, you know, your perspective of it is very glaring, and I thought, wow, this is so stark, and I'm not a fan. But I kind of got some advice to just keep going, because when you actually look back at it, it's going to look a lot more cohesive and intentional and not bad. And like, yeah, it's still kind of stark, and I think really it's because it's just so much darker. There's not as much contrast between this teal and the main color. So I think that's why it's so noticeable, but regardless, I'm glad I didn't rip it out and that I kept going. So yeah, that's my version. I think I knit the size small or size 3. She has an extra small, extra small. It went up to it's definitely a size inclusive pattern. I don't remember what the largest size was called, but yeah, so this should hopefully accommodate many knitters, many body types. It has on me a few inches of positive ease. It's meant to be a bit more relaxed. It's I have a 35-inch bust, and there's probably an inch or two of ease in the bust, but there's a lot of ease in the waist, so it kind of has a bit of a, like, it's fitted a little, but there's a little bit of like a drape, so it's nice and comfortable. I don't feel restricted, and I'll see if I can insert some footage of me trying this on so you can see. But yeah, so that's my other finished object. This is a beautiful one. I'm really glad that I participated in this MCAL. This will, mark my words, be the only MCAL I will do this year, because I forgot to mention in the beginning of this episode, but I am going to Rhinebeck this year. I'm so excited. I went in 2021. I didn't think there'd be really any way I would get to go again anytime soon, but I am. I'm going to, that's New York Sheep and Wool in Rhinebeck, New York, so that it's colloquially known as Rhinebeck, but it's New York Sheep and Wool. I'm also hoping to go to Wool and Folk on the Friday before, so the New York Sheep and Wool is Saturday and Sunday. Last time I went, I only did Saturday, but this time we're going for a longer duration, so I'll go Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully I'll get to meet some people there. I know I will. I did this last time. And hopefully Wool and Folk on Friday. We'll see about that. And then the other exciting thing, and I'll talk more about this later, but the Thursday before, we are going to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. That'll be my first time ever, and I'm so excited because I'll get to see the dinosaurs, and that's the whole reason why I requested that we make that stop. So yeah, more on that later, because my knitting plans are certainly being shaped by that one stop. So I'm really excited. Yeah, so I've got that to look forward to, and yeah, so I don't know if this will be a Rhinebeck sweater or not. I want to wear something more like what I'm wearing today, and maybe incorporate like my Calville shawl, which is a pattern by Gabriella of Merriweather Knitting. It's like a pumpkin orange sort of color, similar to this, so I'll probably wear that, and maybe not as much as a sweater, because the last time I was at Rhinebeck, I wore my Alho sweater, which is also by Johanna actually, and I love that one, but it's a lace weight. It's basically 2 lace weight yarns held together, so it's very nice and thin, and there's lace, and it was cropped, so the weather really wasn't sweater weather that weekend, but so I don't know how warm or cool it'll be that weekend. So I'll probably bring this. I don't know if I'll wear it as my Rhinebeck sweater, but we'll see. Oh, the other thing before I put this down, the floats, now you'll see all my ends. I'm going to show you the side that doesn't have ends. The floats on this are so beautiful, and it made me think, I've probably said this before, but I wish that there was a float sweater pattern. I told my friends that, and they said I should design it, but I do think, after watching a recent Les Garçons podcast episode, I was only half paying attention because I was working, but I think that Vincent was talking about a knitting style that involves using floats. I saw it on a sock or something he did, so I need to do research into that. But look at these floats. This is like just a whole other kind of sweater, you know? It's amazing. Like, I would still wear this. It's just so colorful and fun. Yeah, really cool. Okay, there's all my ends. I promise I've woven in already quite a few, but there's so many. So I'm just working my way through that. Yeah, so that's that. If you have any questions, I'm sure I said it all, but please leave them below. Okay, I think that's all for finished objects, so I'm going to briefly corral this mess of chaos in front of me and try to get my works in progress out here. Okay, actually I shall sip my tea. I'm drinking Earl Grey. So I'll start with I guess this is my oldest whip. I started this back in March, and it's a sweater. As I said earlier, normally I am sort of like a sweater fiend, which is not necessarily a good thing. I'll knit something quickly, but not always. I don't know. I love everything I make, but sometimes I think I should have slowed down and maybe adjusted this or adjusted that. But regardless, I have taken my time on this project, is my point. This is definitely a labor of love. It's been a lot of fun to knit, but if you watched my last episode, I recently finished the Sawyer pullover by Sari Nordland, and that is it's a pullover that has cables, moss stitch, traveling stitches. It's a plethora of just beautiful aspects of knitwear, and that one was a lot of fun to knit, but simultaneously I started this project which employs some of the same design features. So it's been a lot of the same, but doing the Sawyer really got me accustomed to knitting this pattern. So now there's maybe 14, 16, 18 rows or so in this chart repeat, and I have them all memorized because I've been knitting this now for months, essentially, between the Sawyer and this one. Very similar. But anyway, so this is a project bag that I sewed just like the one I showed for my bug sweater. This is a quilted bag. I think it's losing some of the quilting, like the stitch lines with the light, but yeah, this is just a quilted project bag I made for myself with drawstrings. I've got orange drawstrings. I have a handle, which has been nice. Really pretty fabrics on there. And I just quilt this all with my machine. I like the strawberry panel. Okay, without further ado, this is La Prairie by Joji Locatelli. And I am nearly finished with the body. I'm so excited. Okay, let's look at this. This is the back that you're seeing. If you haven't seen La Prairie, it is a buttonless cardigan. It's a 5-color fade. Of course, you could adjust that if you wanted to, but I stuck with the 5 colors. I built my own fade, so I didn't buy a kit or anything, which I'll talk more on in a second. And here's the front. So from the front, you can see the inside of the sweater, obviously, because it's not on me, but it's just these 2 long panels. The placket, if you will, for this cardigan is knit simultaneously, so there's no picking up stitches at the end for a collar or a button band. That's been a really enjoyable aspect of this design. I like it quite a bit. Yeah, that's my La Prairie. And so I'll talk through the yarns for a second. So my color number 1 at the top here, this is Fiori by La Bien-Aimée, and I picked up this colorway from Charlotte Yarn when I went to New York Sheep and Wool in 2021. On my way home, we stopped in Charlotte at the yarn store, and I got these, and it has some beautiful pink and vibrant orange speckles, but otherwise it's like a very light gray and cream color. And then my color number 2 is Tangiopia by La Bien-Aimée, and so again, I picked up these 2 together knowing I would one day use them in a project, and I'm glad that I held on to them, a project together. I'm glad I held on to them because this was the perfect project. So that's Tangiopia. And then color 3 is Golden Hour by Biddy Knits Brooke, who I'm related to by marriage, which is really cool. I've told that story on a prior episode, but it's this colorway here where there's these jammy purples and there's some teal and some olive tones, but it's the perfect transition from these bright oranges and pinks and just very lovely. And then color 4 is Summer Goth by Lamb Strengths Yarn. It is a speckled, lightly variegated, tonal kind of colorway. It's very lovely. Here on the camera, it's coming across like much more tonal because the lights are losing some of that speckling and the variegation, but it's a pale creamy blue, like a milky blue kind of color. It's very lovely. And then my last color is Blue Totoro by papercraneyarns. This is one of my hand-dyed yarns. It's a nice teal color. This happens to be a much more solid skein of this tonal. It's right here behind me. That one. It's hard to point on the camera. Some of the skeins have a bit more like variegation, like tonality differences in the shades, but I picked one that was a bit more tonal. So my needle size for this, I did go down in needle size from Joji's recommended needle size for the pattern. Not because of gauge necessarily, but she called for a 3mm needle, and I did not have a 3mm at the time. So I just went with a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter, so very small difference. Of course, a small difference can make a big difference in the grand scheme, but I tend to be a bit of a looser knitter, so some of the garments that I knit will end up a bit larger than I intend because I knit, I can do English and continental, but I only do that with colorwork. I'm a continental knitter, and so I tend to have a bit of a looser gauge. So I thought going down, 0.25 millimeter, not a big deal. And it's turning out to be the perfect size. So I'm really glad that I ended up making that decision. So yeah, you can see there's baubles all over this cardigan. It's wonderful. There's all these traveling stitches. There's the columns of twisted rib, and I am right at the bottom. So I have 4 more rows before I start the ribbing. So I've got 2 more rows of Blue Totoro, and then I have 2 rows of Summer Goth to finish out the fading, and then I will just do the ribbing hem. Okay, this project has been wonderful. It's very beautiful. Again, I was taking my time on it, partially because I wasn't sure how I wanted to finish this out color-wise. I really loved the orange and pinks up here, and just the brightness of it, very pretty, but I knew I could have kept with the pinks, and I kind of wish that I could knit like 5 versions of this because I have so many color palettes in mind, but I'm not going to do that to myself. My hands actually have been sore from knitting this, so maybe one day I'll make one more because I do really love this design, but I'll have to give it some room to breathe before I do another one. But yeah, there's lots of ways, and for me in a project, the number one most important thing for me in my mind is the color palette. So that's what I look at first, is my color, more than like my gauge or my fabric, anything. The color is most important aspect to me usually. So I was really struggling with wanting this to be absolutely perfect because it's such an intensive kind of knit, and there were so many ways I could skew this color palette, so I wanted it to be perfect. What I struggled with most was my final color. My original final color was actually going to be Nocturnal by Lambstrings yarn, and it's sort of it's a variegated and speckled purple, darker shade, and the benefit of using that one is I still would have gotten a more bold border or hem because the color was much different than Summer Goth, but I do think it would have faded a bit more cohesively, because like between these 2 yarns you can see there's a lot of similarity. So while this is a much different color, there's no bold stripes because each stitch on the row would have like a different color, so that you would get an orange and then a teal, and it would blend a bit better. Here I knew if I used Blue Totoro that I would get this stark transition, which is not my favorite thing, and I have thought a couple times that I would consider ripping it out, sort of like the teal in my other one, my other sweater I finished. But ultimately I decided to stick with it because I really wanted to incorporate that teal in the same color palette with this orange. So I thought I will just do it, and I think once it's done and so it's not just little stripes and it has the full border and the color looks a lot more intentional. Like right now it's sort of more isolated because there's only a few of them. They really stand out. But once I have the thick, brim, or I keep calling it the ribbing, the hem, once I have that thick panel of fabric, I think it will look very intentional and it will have the look I'm going for. The colors here, they do look lovely with each other. It's just that because this is such a solid tonal, there's really no great way to transition this since this is knit flat. There's ways I could have adjusted this, but really you have to knit 2 rows of a color because you're working from one side to the other, and I could have carried, like Summer Goth for example, I could have carried that yarn to the other side, or even cut the yarn and reintroduced it on the other side, and I think doing 1 row stripes of transitioning this color would have probably made it look a little bit better. So I don't know, there's things I could still adjust. I have thought about, again, ripping it out, going back, but again, I think once it's done it'll look intentional. And my other thought was, if I finish the ribbing and it's truly not what I had in mind, like if it doesn't come together the way that I think it will, once the sleeves and everything are done and I get to really see the full effect, then I will just rip out this bottom portion, because in the grand scheme of things, that is a very small amount of knitting compared to the rest of this pattern. And of course, you know, La Bien-Aimée is not cheap yarn, and then like the Biddy Knits is very special to me. I don't know, I want this to feel correct. So I'm willing to rip out and reknit if I have to, which is not, I've certainly done that before. I'm not opposed to it, but I wouldn't normally make a decision like that. I would just kind of accept what I created and move on. But in this case, yeah, I'm willing to make that decision if I need to. But yeah, I think it's gonna be all right. It just, I find myself looking at this portion and thinking this is so beautiful and it fades very, very well. And then I see this and I'm a little bit like hesitant. It doesn't look as good to me. So we'll see. Stay tuned. I will hopefully have this done by the next time I record, or at least I'll have this first version done and then I'll make a decision from there. I've been very on the fence about this whole process. So yeah, that's my Prairie, which is, I guess, my first work in progress that I've shown. Okay, my next whip is a present for my dad. He requested a sleeveless, like a vest cardigan style, like a button-up vest. And so I'm knitting this cabled vest for him, and this is out of Cascade. It's their sport weight wool. It's a non-superwash wool, and it's a lovely green with always with the dog hair. Yeah, so this is just the back panel. Here you can kind of see if I hold it up against me. This is going to be a seamed vest, so I'm just working on the back. There's a long section of like a half twisted rib, and again there's like this whole thing looks very velvety and lovely, and I hope that it's the right size. There's only 3 sizes of the pattern, which I think is called, I keep getting this confused. Again, it'll be linked below, but it's like Men's Best Vest or Everyday Man's Vest, something like that, by Maddy Lane Crafts, I believe is the designer. And yeah, so I haven't been putting as much work into this because I was doing my MCAL and I'm trying to finish my Prairie, but I want to finish this for him before October because he and my mom are coming to Rhinebeck with me, and so I want him to be able to have this as his own Rhinebeck sweater, if you will. Yeah, but this is on my Chow Goo. These are fixed circulars, a US 6 or 4mm, and this really isn't that much work. Like, it's been a quick project. I just need to put in the time to create it. I think it's a 47-inch chest circumference. That's the 3rd size in the pattern, so there's not very many sizes to choose from. You could probably adjust this pattern pretty easily if you needed to create a bigger size, but yeah. I showed him pictures of patterns and this was the one he picked, so that's what we're doing. But I really like it. I like this green. I want something like this. Yeah, so that's quickly just this whip. Okay, here's a quick one to show you. So I am actually knitting my first Sophie shawl. I'm pretty sure that sort of trend has already, like, that ship has sailed. Everybody's already knit themselves 200 of these things, or the Sophie scarf, but I'm knitting my first one. So I forgot to mention on my last episode when I was talking about the yarns that I recently purchased, but I went to, there's a couple of yarn stores that are an hour and a half to 2 hours away from me, and my friend Laura, she's the owner of the yarn shop here in Alabama in Auburn called All Strung Out. She was having her 1-year anniversary party a couple months ago now, so I took the day off at my shop and I went to go see her and get some yarn. And on my way, I actually stopped at Yarn Shop Around the Corner, which is Teresa's shop. That is in Dadeville, Alabama. She wasn't there that day. She had some personal stuff going on, and so I was going to surprise her, but I didn't realize she wasn't there. But I still came in and I bought a couple of skeins of yarn from her shop. And she had Malabrigo, and this is Rios, so it's a worsted weight Malabrigo, and it's very dark and lovely. I just got 2 skeins, so I wasn't really sure what exactly I would do with 2 skeins of this worsted weight wool, I thought I would maybe make something for my husband, but I think he would want like a fingering weight hat more than he would a worsted. So I decided to just make my first Sophie shawl, long story short. And so yeah, I've used up one skein and I haven't touched this since. So I was intending to do the largest, oh, and this is by Petite Knit. I was intending to do the largest size of the shawl, but I don't think I have enough yarn to do all the increases. So I'm just, since this is one entire skein, I'm just going to go ahead and start the decreases. I need to look at the pattern with my next skein to make sure I have enough. But it's very pretty. It's variegated. It's a very like earthy, I would say these are like gem tones, but in an earthy way. So yeah, very lovely, very simple. I don't know if this will be for me or not. I don't know if it's really my color. So it may end up being a gift. I have to think of who might wear this if I do gift it. But yeah, very, very simple. 6-row repeat. The only, it's again, very, very simple. You can easily memorize this. The only thing you kind of have to keep up with is which number row you're on to know when you need to do your increase or decrease. But yeah, it's been simple otherwise. So that is the Sophie shawl. And I would absolutely say that this is one of the most beginner-friendly patterns out there. So if you're a new knitter, you should certainly try this. Or the little, I don't want to do the little scarf, as cute as I think it is. I have a larger face, and so when I'm cut off at the neck, I think it's not my favorite look for me, unfortunately, but I might make a small one for my daughter when she's a bit older. Yeah, that's my quick little Sophie shawl. Okay, next whip. I think I'm running out of time for today. I'm not on a huge time budget, but I do have somewhere to be. So my next whip, oh, I didn't grab all the yarns, but that's okay. So when I was at the Smoky Mountain Heritage Center as a vendor, I usually have a rule that if I'm doing a show, I'm not going to buy anything, or at least I won't intend to buy anything, and I wouldn't buy anything I could dye. So I try not to buy any hand-dyed yarn, but if there is a farmer or a farm there with like wool from, you know, they themselves, they took care of the animals, and you know, usually these wools have the name of the animal on them. Those are very special. Those are not something I could just dye for myself, or you don't come across that every single day, not where I live at least. So that's my one exception. And there was a vendor there called Two Roots Farm, and they specialize mostly in alpacas, although I think they do have a few other animals like some merino sheep. And so they have alpaca wool, and they don't dye their wools. They have a couple of yarns with like some silk blended in, and they do use like dyed silk, but it's very subtle, and I'll actually show you that in my project. So yeah, I got a sweater quantities worth from them for my husband, and this will be his Rhinebeck sweater. So I'm making the Unbearable hoodie by Les Garçons. This is, I believe, a Maxim Cyr pattern. And yeah, so this is the Unbearable hoodie, and it's really amazing. I can't wait to give this to him and make a matching one for my daughter, and one day one for myself. So this yarn, I have 3 colors here. My main color, this is what I was mentioning with their sort of dyed silk. Oh, the lights are so bright today. If you can kind of see, there's like pink and green and electric blue. There's just little silk neps. So it's almost like having a tweed yarn, but there's no additional texture. It's just these bright, bright pops of color, but they're still subtle enough that you just have like this brown bear. Really cute. And then this cream color is one of their wools. This one is actually called Dock and Freebird, and they told me that those are their 2 herd sires. So it's a alpaca and merino blend with maybe a little silk content, I don't recall. And so Dock and Freebird are their herd sires, and so I thought that was really cute. They told me that after I bought the wool. So that is an undyed, just creamy color, and that is my background panel for that. And those are both non-superwash, so they have been perfect for this color work. There's no puckering going on in my floats. It's been really easy to keep a relaxed, like stretchy tension. This non-superwash has been really stretchy. I've been catching my floats like every 3 or 4 because, well, to be frank, I put more care into things I make for other people, so I wanted to make sure that the floats were nice and loose and stretchy. So that's why my bears look so good, I think. And they have little hats. I love it. Okay, the third color, this is my hand-dyed yarn. This is my Tea with Honey colorway. So it's just a lovely, just a gold kind of color. And I thought that would be perfect for my bears. So that is that. It uses a provisional cast on, which is why the neckline looks large and floppy. So at the end, I'll go in and pick up and you knit the hood for this hoodie and the rest of the collar. I've got a lot of really cute stitch markers on here. I've got this tea bag from Simply Serving to kind of go with my like honey theme. So I love that. Yeah, and I'm carrying that in my bag from Fat Squirrel Fibers. Really cute. Bunch of little friends with mushroom hats, and they live in a mushroom village. Love that. This is the label for Two Roots alpacas. They're Two Roots Farm. Very pretty. And there's my pretty cake. So it has a bluish color in there too. You can kind of see the neps. Yeah, quite nice. This is my ball of Dock and Freebird. And they're so like waxy feeling, like a very lovely, woolly, waxy kind of feeling. That's how I normally would describe like a non-superwash, is that kind of, it's not like tacky, but it has a little bit of like a texture to it, and it's like that waxy feeling that I just love in wool. All right. Okay. My next work in progress. I am knitting the second sock to this. This is the Valley Comes Alive, the spring season Stardew Valley socks by the lovely Oakwood Knits, who also just released some new Zelda sock patterns for the, I guess, to kind of correlate with the new game that just came out yesterday. I'm still a Zelda noob. I'm playing my first Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, for the first time. I was always like a Mario and Sonic person growing up, so now I'm playing Zelda, and it's been fun, so you should go for sure check out her Zelda patterns. But yeah, this is spring, Valley Comes Alive. She's such an incredible designer. I talked about this sock a lot on my last episode. Still haven't woven in this end. So I won't go too into detail. I just realized that the knit along was coming to a close, so I decided to go ahead and cast on my second one. I'm running out of time today, so I will do a bigger wrap up on how I've knit these in my next episode. I'm only here, but I will say in my last one, I was kind of tired, and I looked back and sort of listened because I couldn't remember which size I knit, which is the smallest size, which is a 64 stitch cast on. So I looked back and I realized that I don't think I explained myself really well with the floats, and I was talking about the floats in the cloud. I should have said that I personally was the one who had trouble with the floats with the clouds. Not that the pattern itself, I don't think I said this, but I want to make sure I get this point across. The pattern itself is not problematic. The pattern is perfect. I have personal trouble sometimes with, like I'm a loose knitter, but with color work, I would not say as much. So I'm very good at, oh, I have more time than I thought. Okay, I'm gonna slow down. We'll talk about this pattern. I am not a tight knitter, but I do sometimes keep my floats tight, personally. So I talked about how there's a lot of stitches on these rows that go between, like, there's a lot of stitches here to carry in these floats. There are certainly methods you can use to ease that up or to make that a little bit better for yourself. And something that I have done with long floats like this, and I did this in this pattern, is I actually just knit and I tried my best to keep it loose. And then if it ends up being too tight, I will go in and I will cut the longest lengths of the float. So maybe I didn't catch it as many times. Wherever the float is the longest, I'll go in and I will cut that, and then I will sew those ends into the fabric. So I do secure them. They're not just floating in there, if you will. But that's just how I do it. So I ended up doing that with this pattern because this part, I could not get my foot at an angle. You know, you're putting your foot, and then of course you've got your, well, why am I using my hand? I have this right here. So I couldn't get this part of my body into the sock. So I could put my foot in here, but then I couldn't, where it curves, I couldn't get in there. So I needed to loosen something up. So I did that by cutting those and tying them in. The designer, she was really sweet, and she sent me a tutorial when she saw my video to a technique called, I think it's jacquard. It's a ladder, jacquard ladder, something or other. Goodness. I'm going to look at the technique as soon as I start my next row on my socks, because I'm actually, my next row starts the cloud. So I'll be introducing the white, and I'm going to follow the instructions she sent me. She was like, hey, it's been it's been weeks, but she just said like that she knew I had some trouble because she saw my video and that I could try this technique. So I'm looking forward to trying that, and hopefully that makes a difference for me. I'm self-taught, so you know, I definitely can't claim to know everything, and I'm always willing to learn like a new skill or method of doing something. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do know that there's ways I can fix it, if you will, if I need to. And what's funny is, so I don't think I mentioned this last episode. Again, I was tired. I was short on time. But when I knit the first one, this one, I don't know what I was thinking, but I actually knit up to about here. So from here to here, I knit it with the wrong needle size. I actually went up by like a full needle size. And by that I mean, she says to do the color work. I don't have the pattern in front of me, but it was like a 2.5 millimeter, or no, I think a 1.5 millimeter. I knit it on a 2.5 millimeter. I don't know why, but I took notes on the pattern to indicate to myself when I adjusted. So I knit this whole part, and I was happy that I did this because the fabric doesn't really look different, but it allowed this part to be a bit looser for my leg to go in. So it was about here that I actually adjusted my needle size to the correct one, whichever that one is. I think it's a 1.5. So I'm glad I took that note, because I'm knitting the second sock the same way since it worked for me. So I'm actually knitting from here to here with a whole other needle size, and then switching and doing the rest of the sock with the correct needle. You really can't tell, and that's probably because because of all the floats here, my fabric is denser and tighter the way that I knit it. So I think the needle size difference actually ended up making about the same gauge here as it did here, which was like a happy accident. So I'm glad I did that. And I kind of forgot I did that until I started my second sock and saw my notes. So I'm glad I took notes so I could replicate that silly mistake. The other thing I'm doing differently, actually, is with this one, I think I knit the sock at first on double pointed needles, which would certainly change my gauge and my floats, my ability to catch floats. I would say I'm a proficient colorwork knitter, but more so just on a circular needle, less so. I love DPNs, but maybe not colorwork on DPNs. So for this next sock, I actually have the correct size of DPNs. So I'm actually knitting the whole sock on DPN. So I think that'll also help with the clouds, and I might not even have that issue at all, even if I don't try out the new technique she sent me, because I'm just on 9-inch circulars. And again, I'm a much more confident colorwork knitter, and I think I have a lot easier of a time catching my floats appropriately with this style of knitting. So yeah, that's my ring. I guess I put that on there. I've been wondering where it was. I wear it every day. It's a stitch marker right now. Not that I have 100 of them or anything. Let me just use the closest thing, because I guess I was being a bit lazy. But yeah, I'm going to hurry up and whip this up so I can finish it for the deadline to participate in the official knit along, which I think ends on the 22nd or so of May. So yeah, I have a week or so to go ahead and finish this, week and a half maybe. Yeah, and there's a ton of colors that go into this. It's knit from the KnitPicks palette yarn, which is a fingering weight, just wool yarn. I talked about this last time, and she talks about it in her pattern, but palette, you know, she recommends it because there's such a great color, palette, of course, a good variety of colors to use for this color work. And she's like a color work expert in terms of her design. So I definitely trusted following what she recommended for colors to really achieve like the Stardew Valley look. and I think it's perfect. There were only 2 colors that I did not purchase the palette for because I knew I had these yarns kind of already in stash. So, whew, okay, take a deep breath, step back. So these yarns don't have nylon, which might not be like traditional sock yarn, but I have some socks that don't have nylon, and actually that sock that I've knit, it's got wool and linen, and it's held up the best out of all my socks, so I'm not too worried. And these are going to be like hanging out kind of socks, not hiking socks, you know. So yeah, two of the colors are not according to like her recommendations from the palette yarn from KnitPicks, which is the red and actually the white in the clouds. And you know, that could also be part of why I had trouble, because the white that I used had nylon in it, so maybe the fabric doesn't have as much stretch and give lengthwise as like I think this is like a 2-ply fingering weight. I think it's a non-superwash wool, so it kind of has a nice bounce and stretch. So that could also be it. Maybe my white yarn just doesn't have as much give in it. So that's that. Okay, so I guess I won't talk about my crochet work in progress today. I'll hopefully make some more progress on that and show it at a later time. So now I guess I'll just talk about the yarn that I have purchased recently, and then my knitting plans. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so first, I guess keeping along with the Stardew Valley theme, I recently purchased from Nerdy Knits this skein of yarn, which is called Prismatic Shard, which is in Stardew Valley. It's a gem that you can mine and you give it to people as gifts, and it's like the best gift you can give, and it's really great. So, but it's like a rainbow little shard. And so Nerdy Knits, who I want to say this is the giveaway prize for the knit along. I don't remember. Anyway, she had some seconds skeins of this, so this one was discounted, and I think she just said that like it didn't necessarily dye correctly, like maybe there's more purple in it than she intended or more of another color. It looks perfect to me. It's very beautiful. And I also got the Prismatic Shard stitch marker / progress keeper that she had to go along with it. It's really beautiful. And now I will put this on my sock and take my ring back. And so now I can have a Stardew Valley stitch marker. And yeah, so this is a yarn that I got from Nerdy Knits. Prismatic Shard. It's an 80/20 fingering nylon sock weight, 399 yards. She also has a Stray collection. Stray is like an indie game based on a cat in Tokyo, and I think it's a cat in Tokyo. I'm an active member of a community for a gaming podcast, and they have all played Stray and they talk about it a lot. I have yet to play it because I don't have time, but the yarn looks beautiful. The game looks beautiful. I mean, nothing better than being a cat, I guess. So anyway, Nerdy Knits, very lovely. I'm gonna keep this. This is her like thank you card. It's lovely. That's like my house actually, except my cat is black. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of yarn to show you, so please be nice to me. Some of this yarn I actually had purchased before my prior episode and forgot to show it. Like a couple that I have here. So when I mentioned I went to Auburn for the 1-year anniversary of All Strung Out, she had this on sale. I got a sweater quantity of these Rowan yarns. So I got 4 Kid Silk Haze, and these are all 25 grams each. So I have 100 grams here of Kid Silk Haze by Rowan, which is a a silk mohair, 230 yards. So this is a lace weight, and I'm going to hold it double with, I have 3 of the Rowan fine lace. These are 50 grams. So I have 150 grams of this. I'm going to hold these 2 double. And my intention was to knit, and fine lace is made with baby Surrey alpaca and fine merino. It's 80% alpaca, 20% wool. It's incredibly soft. This is going to be a lovely sweater. My intention when I bought it is to make another Alho sweater by Johanna, and I will probably still do that. So when I knit that one first. I absolutely loved it, and I used one of the yarns that she recommended was the Holst Garn, but it was their Noble yarn, which is it was like a Geelong cashmere, I think is what it's called. It was a blend, but it's been discontinued. And so I needed to find an alternative, and that was a lace weight. And so this one is a lace weight. So I think I'll probably meet gauge and make like a silvery, smoky colored all-ho sweater. So can't wait for that. And then I'm about to show quite a few Yarnaceous Fibers yarns. I do her monthly Paleo Botany Club. So right now I have March through April here in front of me, which I've already shown potentially all of these. I think one of these I've gotten since I last recorded, which would be April. I'm still thinking up like my grand project for these yarns, but starting over here with like the white and blue, that was January, and then February, March, and April. And she said I think she's doing kind of like a somewhat fade, and there's elements of each colorway in the next. This one's my favorite so far. Got oranges and purple and speckles. So yeah, I'm like a Yarnaceous fangirl. I'm Maggie's #1 fan, I think. So I'm collecting her yarns, and I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting her at Woolen Folk. I said that I was going, and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be at Woolen Folk. We have to meet." So now that's why I want to go to Woolen Folk, so I can meet Maggie. Also recently did her Jurassic Bark collection, and in this collection she had some beautiful tonal colorways. Get the light to fix. She had some beautiful tonal colorways. So I got a sweater's quantity from this update. And this is the Vesuviant. Yeah, Vesuviant or Vesuviante, not sure. Vesuviant colorway, which is one of her gemstones. That's what she calls her tonals, and I love that. And she also calls these Yarnosaurs, which delights me each and every time that I pretend like I'm about to buy something from her website and I don't, and then I get an email that says, "Did you see a little Yarnosaur you liked?" And I'm always like, yes I did. All the Yarnosaurs. Okay, so this is a sweater's quantity. This is her Salta fingering base, which I absolutely love. It's a 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, fingering weight, very lovely. This color is perfect. And I got some corresponding, this is her newest base, Cosmo Cash lace. It's 82% fine merino wool, 18% cashmere. These are 50 grams, they're lace weight, 316 yards. But this would be like holding silk mohair or Surrey double. But you guys, it's like this brushed cashmere. It's the softest thing I've ever felt. Like, this is softer than a kitten. It's amazing. And I think she said something about not getting flyaways, like how silk mohair, you end up with it in your eyelashes and in your throat and very uncomfortable places. But this has like zero shedding. So I think this will be lovely. The Yarniacs podcast, Gail and Charlene, they've been doing a podcast for many years. They host a knit-along called the Colors of Fall Knit-Along, and they use like the Pantone colors of the year and Pantone colors of fall, like the New York and London Fashion Week sort of colors. And this year I'm going to participate, and this corresponds with one of the colors that Pantone has put out for this year. And so they cast on, I think, June 21st or so. So I'll be making probably a love note, or perhaps my first ranunculus with these. I just want like a staple piece. I've already knit 3 love notes, and I would be happy to have another one. But yeah, just going to do a simple staple sort of everyday piece that will have beautiful lace and you know, this cashmere, and make it something kind of elegant but everyday. So there's that. Okay, just a few more things to show and then I have to run. So I do have a couple more skeins from Yarnaceous. These are also the Salta fingering base. The lights are really blowing out. This is from her Bark collection, one of her newer colors, Hematite, and this one is her Natural Light. So these are both gemstones, and I'm going to make the Fossil Frenzy T Junior for my daughter for when we go to the dinosaur exhibit at the Smithsonian. So that'll be, I'll be casting this on here very shortly so I can get started. And speaking of which, Mary Hunt, who's the designer for that sweater, she just put out a test call for the Stegosaurus sweater. It's her newest design, and I got in, so I have a kit coming from Maggie for that, and I can't wait. That's one I can share, so I'm really excited to share that one as I knit it. So I'm waiting for that yarn to show up and to receive the pattern, and then I'll be testing that one. And then lastly, I got, so Brooklyn Tweed, they had their warehouse sale, like their seconds yarn, and I got 2 sweater quantities because these skeins of shelter were $4.99, which is like a fourth of what they normally cost. So yeah, I got 2 sweater quantities. And the idea is that these have like maybe less yarn, or they're not, you know, skeined as nicely, or they're like seconds. But I have weighed all of this yarn, and actually they gave me extra. So each of these skeins was fuller than it was supposed to be, so it worked in my favor. But I got this colorway, which is Klimt, so it's like a mustard yellow kind of color, and the other one, it might have been something like Forest Floor, but it's like a bluish green color. So those will be 2 sweaters on my needles soon. And I am out of time, so I'm going to just quickly end there, but I really appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully I've inserted a little bit of garden footage and perhaps some footage of my newest sweater in this video. I would love for you guys to leave me a comment and let me know what you're working on, and let me know what's growing in your garden right now, what you've been baking. I've been making lots of kombucha, and I've been doing a lot of baking. We've been eating harvest from our garden and whatnot. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back really soon, and I thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know if I'll see you at Rhinebeck, or if you're hoping to make plans to be there or at the adjacent events, and hopefully we can hang out and meet up. But yeah, enjoy the spring that we're having, enjoy whatever you're working on, and yeah, thank you. I will talk to you soon, I hope. Bye!